Hello, and welcome to Subtle Historian for Sleep. Take a moment now to find a comfortable position. Allow your body to settle, to feel the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders. Let go of any lingering thoughts, any tasks left undone, and give yourself permission to simply be here in this quiet space. Tonight, our journey takes us back in time. Not to the thunder of legions or the grand pronouncements of emperors, but to the soft, steady pulse of everyday life. We are traveling to ancient Rome, to the heart of a sprawling empire during the height of its power. But we will not be walking through the marble halls of the Senate or the palaces on the Palatine Hill. Instead, we are going to explore the world from the ground up. To understand the grand ambitions of Rome, through the gritty, mundane, and often overlooked realities of its ordinary people. We will seek to understand the peculiar perils and the quiet triumphs that defined a life lived 2,000 years ago. So, take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, allow your mind to drift across the centuries. Imagine the world outside fading away, replaced by the distant, echoing sounds of an ancient city. Our story begins here, as you awaken to a new day in the city of Rome. The first light of dawn is little more than a suggestion, a soft, gray promise filtering through a small, high window that holds no glass, only a wooden shutter, now partly open to the cool morning air. You awaken not to a sudden alarm, but to a slow, creeping awareness. The air in the room is cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of plaster and wood smoke. You are in your small apartment, a room known as a cenaculum, on the fourth floor of a towering apartment block called an insula. Imagine yourself pulling a rough woolen blanket a little closer. The room is sparse. A simple mattress stuffed with straw or reeds rests on the floor. A small wooden chest holds your few possessions. There is no other furniture. This single room is home for your entire family. You can hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of others sleeping nearby, a familiar and constant sound in your life. The city outside is already beginning to stir. Even from this height, you can hear the low rumble of iron-rimmed wheels on stone-paved streets below. The law forbids noisy wagon traffic in the city during the daylight hours, and so the nights and early mornings are filled with the clamor of supply carts, their drivers calling out, their movements echoing up the narrow alleyways. It is the city's restless heartbeat, a sound that has been the backdrop to every morning you have ever known. You can feel the very structure of the building around you. The insula is a marvel of practical, if precarious, engineering. Built with cheap timber frames and crude brick, these buildings soar 5, 6, even 7 stories high, packed together to house the city's immense population. Every so often, the building groans, a deep, resonant creak that speaks of its immense weight and imperfect construction. This sound is another constant, a quiet reminder of the fragility of your world. The danger of fire or even collapse is a low, persistent hum of anxiety that every resident of an insula learns to live with, and then to ignore. It is simply the way things are. As you begin your day, thoughts turn to food. There will be no grand breakfast. For most Romans like yourself, the morning meal, the oentaculum, is a simple affair. You might take a small round loaf of bread, dense and heavy, and dip it into a bit of watered-down wine, or perhaps just water. It is fuel for the morning's work, nothing more. Much of your diet and your very survival depends on a remarkable system known as the annona, the public grain dole. For hundreds of thousands of Rome's poor citizens, this monthly distribution of grain is a lifeline. Imagine yourself later in the day, standing in a long, patient queue, waiting for your measure of wheat. It is a social ritual, a time to catch up on neighborhood gossip, to see familiar faces, to feel a part of the vast, complex machinery of the city. The grain you receive, you will have to take to a local baker to be milled and baked, for a small fee. Your tiny apartment has no oven, no hearth, no safe place for a fire. For a midday meal, you might stop at a thermopolium, one of the countless street food stalls that line the bustling avenues. Picture an L-shaped counter facing the street, with large clay pots, or dolia, set directly into it. These pots hold warm, ready-to-eat food, a thick lentil stew perhaps, or cooked sausages. The air around the stall is thick with the scent of cooking food, a welcome and comforting aroma. The main meal of the day, the cena, comes in the late afternoon. For you, it will not be the elaborate multi-course banquet of the wealthy. It will likely be a thick porridge of wheat or barley, known as pulse. For centuries, this was the staple food of Rome. To this porridge you might add whatever else you can afford, some cheese, a few vegetables, perhaps an egg. And to season it all, there is one ever-present flavor: garum. This fermented fish sauce is the defining taste of Roman cuisine. It is made by layering fish and salt in large vats and leaving them to ferment under the sun for weeks. The resulting liquid is a pungent, deeply salty and savory condiment used in nearly every dish, from the most humble porridge to the most extravagant feast. The taste is unfamiliar to our modern palate, but for you it is simply the taste of home. It is the flavor of your world, a constant and reliable part of the rhythm of life. The challenge of cooking, the reliance on public grain and street vendors, these are not hardships to you. They are simply the shape of a normal day. From sunrise to sunset, your day is defined by labor. Imagine yourself as a craftsman, perhaps a potter. Your workshop is a small rented space on the ground floor of an insula, open to the street. The air is cool and smells of damp clay. Your hands are familiar with the texture of the earth, the feel of it spinning on the wheel, the gentle pressure needed to coax it into the shape of a cup, a bowl, a storage jar. The work is repetitive, a series of motions you have performed thousands of times. There is a quiet meditation in this rhythm, in the steady turning of the wheel, the soft scraping of tools against clay. The hours are long, dictated not by a clock, but by the slow passage of the sun across the sky. Or perhaps you are a fuller, a laundry worker, engaged in the arduous task of cleaning woolen togas. The work is strenuous, involving treading on cloth in vats of water and cleansing agents. The workshop is noisy and damp. Yet there is a sense of community here. Your work is not a solitary endeavor. You belong to a collegium, a trade guild. This collegium is more than just a professional association. It is the central pillar of your social life. It is a brotherhood of shared skill and circumstance. Your guild meets regularly, sharing meals and celebrating religious festivals together. It provides a sense of identity, a place of belonging in a city of 1 million strangers. Most importantly, the collegium ensures that when your time comes, you will have a proper burial, your name recorded and your memory honored by your peers. In a world of uncertainty, this fellowship provides a small but profound measure of stability. It is a quiet promise that you will not be forgotten. As the afternoon sun begins to wane, the workday draws to a close. The city is layered in the grime and dust of the day, and the desire to be clean is a universal one. This is the time for the baths. But first, you might make a necessary stop at one of the city's public latrines. Picture a long, rectangular room. Along the walls runs a bench of cool, smooth marble, punctuated by a series of keyhole-shaped openings. Beneath the bench, a channel of constantly flowing water runs, carrying waste away into the city's impressive sewer system, the Cloaca Maxima. There are no partitions, no sense of privacy. This is a profoundly public space. Here, you might sit next to a neighbor or a stranger, catching up on the day's news, closing a business deal, or simply enjoying a moment of rest. It is a strange and unfamiliar concept to us, but to you, it is a normal and unremarkable part of the daily routine. From there, you proceed to the thermae, the great public bathhouses. These are not merely places to wash, they are vast, palatial complexes, the social and recreational heart of the city. As you step inside, leaving the noisy street behind, you enter another world. The sheer scale of the building is astounding. High, vaulted ceilings echo with the sounds of splashing water and the low murmur of hundreds of conversations. The air is warm and humid. You begin in the apoditirium, the changing room, leaving your clothes in a small niche in the wall. From there, you follow the traditional sequence. First to the tepidarium, a warm room, to allow your body to adjust to the heat. The air's pleasant, the marble beneath your feet gently warmed from below by the ingenious Roman heating system, the hypocaust. Next, you move into the caldarium, the hot room. The heat here is intense, the air thick with steam. You can feel your pores open, the day's tension beginning to melt away. After sweating for a time, you would clean yourself. Lacking soap, you would rub olive oil onto your skin and then scrape it off, along with any dirt, using a curved metal tool called a strigil. Finally, you would brave a plunge into the bracingly cold water of the frigidarium, closing your pores and refreshing your body completely. But the experience is not over. The baths also contain exercise yards, libraries, gardens, and even food stalls. It is a place for the mind as well as the body. It is the great equalizer of Roman society. Here, for the price of a single, small coin, you, a humble craftsman, can enjoy a level of luxury and leisure that would be the envy of kings in other lands. This daily ritual of the baths is a cherished part of your identity as a Roman. It washes away the grime of your labor, soothes your tired muscles, and connects you to the community. It is a moment of peace, a quiet luxury in a life of constant struggle. It is the gentle closing of another day. And as the rhythm of life continued in Rome, as the potter shaped his clay and the citizen sought refuge in the warmth of the public baths, a very different story was unfolding, thousands of miles to the east. The world was larger and more disconnected then, a patchwork of civilizations largely unaware of one another. Yet, slowly, threads were being woven, connections being made by individuals of remarkable fortitude. To understand one of the most important of these threads, we must travel eastward, beyond the lands of the Romans, beyond Persia, until we arrive in the heart of another great ancient empire, the China of the Han dynasty. Our story begins in the 2nd century BCE, in the grand capital city of Chang'an. The Han Empire, like Rome, was a powerhouse of its time, but it faced a persistent and serious threat. To the north, across the vast grasslands, lived the Xiongnu, a confederation of nomadic tribes whose skilled horsemen and sudden raids were a constant source of instability along the Empire-ES borders. The reigning emperor, a powerful and ambitious ruler named Wu of Han, grew weary of defensive policies. He envisioned a grand strategic maneuver, a way to solve the Xiongnu problem not by meeting it head-on, but by outflanking it. His court historians told him of a people called the Yuezhi, a once powerful group who had been defeated by the Xiongnu and driven far to the west into unknown lands. Emperor Wu reasoned that if he could find the Yuezhi and remind them of their old grudge, he might forge an alliance. Together, they could pressure the Xiongnu from both east and west. It was a brilliant idea, but it was based on little more than a rumor. The lands to the west were a mystery, a vast, uncharted territory known only through fragmented tales. To undertake this mission, the emperor needed a man of immense courage, loyalty, and discretion. He chose a court official, a gentleman of the palace named Zhang Qian. Zhang Qian was not a general or a warrior. He was a diplomat, a man whose skills lay in observation, patience, and unwavering resolve. In the year 138 BCE, he accepted his emperor's charge. With a retinue of around 100 men and a single Xiongnu guide who had been captured, he set out from the gates of Chang'an. His mission, to cross the vast and hostile lands controlled by the enemy, to find a displaced people in an unknown location, and to propose a military alliance. As his party traveled west into the setting sun, they were walking off the edge of their known world. The journey was perilous from the very start. As Zhang Qian and his entourage attempted to navigate the narrow Hexi corridor, a critical passage to the west, they were discovered and intercepted by a Xiongnu patrol. The entire mission was captured. His grand diplomatic endeavor, it seemed, was over before it had truly begun. Zhang Qian was taken before the leader of the Xiongnu, but instead of being executed, he was treated with a strange sort of respect. The Xiongnu leader, perhaps impressed by his mission or simply seeing value in keeping a Han official, chose to detain him. Zhang Qian was not kept in a dungeon or put in chains. He was allowed to live among the Xiongnu. He was even given a Xiongnu wife, and in time, they had a son. For 10 years, Zhang Qian lived this life. A decade passed. To an outside observer, he might have appeared to have assimilated, to have forgotten his past. But every day he maintained his sense of purpose. He never forgot that he was an envoy of the Han Emperor. This long period of waiting was not wasted. It became a decade of profound learning. Imagine him, quietly observing the rhythms of nomadic life. He learned their language until he was fluent. He studied their customs, their social structures, their beliefs. He watched how they trained their horses, how they made their bows, how their armies were organized. He came to understand their strengths and their weaknesses from the inside. This long, slow decade of captivity transformed him from a simple envoy into one of the Han Empire's foremost experts on their greatest rivals. His patience was a quiet, unyielding force, a patient waiting for an opportunity that might never come. After 10 years, that opportunity finally arose. The security around him had grown lax, his captors perhaps believing he had finally accepted his fate. Seizing a carefully chosen moment, Zhang Qian, along with his wife and a single loyal aide, slipped away and fled. But he did not flee back towards China. His mission was not yet complete. Guided by the knowledge he had gathered during his captivity, he continued his journey west, deeper into the unknown. Imagine the landscapes he would have passed through. The vast, unforgiving expanse of the Taklamakan Desert, a sea of sand and stone where the wind whispers over silent dunes. He would have followed the string of small oasis towns that clung to the desert's edge, each a small pocket of green in an ocean of beige. Then came the mountains. He and his small party crossed the formidable Pamir Range, the roof of the world, a silent, breathtaking vista of snow-capped peaks and treacherous passes. After this immense ordeal, he descended into a land of surprising fertility and civilization, the Fergana Valley, which the Chinese called Daiwan. Here he found not nomads but settled people living in walled cities, growing grapes to make wine and raising crops. And it was here that he saw the horses. The Fergana horses were unlike any he had seen before. They were large, powerful, and said to sweat blood after a hard gallop, a phenomenon likely caused by a skin parasite, but which gave them a legendary divine status. He called them heavenly horses, and knew instantly how valuable they would be to the Han cavalry. Pressing on, he finally located the Yuezhi people. He found them in the lands of Bactria, in what is now modern Afghanistan. They were prosperous and content, living in a fertile land and trading with their new neighbors. Zhang Qian presented his emperor's proposal for an alliance, an offer of joint revenge against the Xiongnu. But the Yuezhi refused. Their memory of their old defeat had faded. They had no interest in war. Diplomatically, Zhang Qian's primary mission had come to a quiet and definitive end. With his objective unfulfilled, Zhang Qian knew it was time to return home, to report his findings to the emperor. He began the long journey east, choosing a different route this time, through the south, hoping to avoid the Xiongnu. But fate was not so kind. He was captured once again. This second captivity, however, lasted only a year. In the midst of internal conflict following the death of the Xiongnu leader, Zhang Qian saw another chance. He escaped for a second time, and finally, after 13 years away from home, he crossed the border back into Han China. Of the more than 100 men who had set out with such purpose from Chang'an all those years ago, only 2 returned, Zhang Qian and his faithful aide. He was granted an audience with Emperor Wu. He had to report that his mission to forge an alliance with the Yuezhi had failed. But what he brought back was infinitely more valuable than a military pact. He laid before the emperor a treasure trove of information. He provided detailed accounts of the kingdoms he had visited, Dayuan, Bactria, and others. He spoke of their people, their products, their customs, and their armies. He brought back tales of lands he had only heard about from others, of Parthia in Persia, of a land called Lygian, which may have been a reference to Rome, of Shendu in the Indus Valley. He had painted a picture of a vast, complex, and sophisticated world to the west, a world of which the Chinese had previously been almost completely ignorant. He spoke of the magnificent heavenly horses of Fergana, a military asset of unimaginable worth. The report from Zhang Qian electrified the Han court. His journey, born of a military strategy, became the catalyst for something far greater. It ignited a thirst for exploration and trade. In the years that followed, the Han Empire sent more missions west, not for alliances, but for commerce. They sought the great horses of Fergana, and in return they offered the one thing the West would come to desire above all else: silk. Zhang Qian's quiet perseverance, his decade of patient observation, and his unwavering loyalty in the face of repeated failure did not create the Silk Road. But his journey unlocked the door. He was the single thread that, once pulled, began to unravel the mysteries between East and West, paving the way for the legendary network of trade routes that would change the course of history, connecting civilizations in a slow, centuries-long exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. His story is not one of victory in battle, but of a triumph of endurance. While the grand journeys of figures like Zhang Qian paint a broad and sweeping canvas of history, connecting empires and spanning continents, other parts of the past are found in much smaller, more intimate discoveries. History is not only in the written word of emperors and diplomats, it is also held silently within the objects that people left behind. And some of these objects are deeply, wonderfully enigmatic. They do not come with a written story. They simply exist, offering us a quiet puzzle. Let us now leave the dusty trails of the Silk Road and travel back to the Roman Empire, but this time to its northern provinces, to the lands of Gaul and Roman Britain. And let us imagine holding in the palm of our hand a small, curious object. It is surprisingly heavy for its size, cast in bronze. It is a hollow, geometric shape with 12 flat, pentagonal faces. At each of the 20 corners or vertices, there is a small, decorative knob. And in the center of each of the 12 faces, there is a perfectly circular hole, each one of a slightly different diameter. This is the Roman dodecahedron. Hundreds of these artifacts have been unearthed over the years, from Wales to Hungary, but the vast majority come from these Gallo-Roman regions. They date from the 2nd to the 4th centuries CE. They are intricate, beautifully made, and all share the same basic design. And they are a complete mystery. For all of the Romans' meticulous record-keeping, for all of the encyclopedic works of writers like Pliny the Elder, who seemed to document every aspect of the known world, there is not a single surviving mention of these objects, not one word to explain what they were for. They are ghosts of the Roman world, silent witnesses to a purpose we have long forgotten. Archaeologists and historians, faced with this silence, have long puzzled over their function, offering a range of quiet, practical possibilities. The mind naturally seeks a logical, everyday purpose for such a carefully crafted tool. One of the most enduring theories is that the dodecahedron was a sophisticated measuring device. Perhaps the 12 holes of varying sizes were used as a gauge, a way to quickly check the diameter of things like metal rods, wooden dowels, or even the lead water pipes that gave Roman plumbing its fame. One could simply find the hole that provided a perfect fit. It is a simple, elegant explanation. Another possibility lies in the realm of engineering or warfare. Some have suggested it could have been a surveying instrument, used to estimate distances or level ground on a construction project. By looking through pairs of opposite holes, one might create a sight line. Others have wondered if it was a rangefinder for artillery, helping a catapult crew to calculate the correct angle of fire. And yet, for such precise work, the dodecahedron seems a rather clumsy and imprecise tool. Perhaps its purpose was far more domestic. One of the simplest theories is that it was merely a decorative candlestick holder. A small wax candle could have been wedged into one of the holes, and the object itself would have made a stable and rather beautiful base. Imagine the soft, flickering light it would have cast in a simple Roman home. And more recently, a new and gentle theory has emerged, that it was a tool for knitting gloves. The knobs at the vertices could have been used to hold the loops of yarn, allowing a skilled artisan to weave the fingers of a glove. It is a comforting, domestic image, a tool for creating warmth in the cold northern provinces. But what if its purpose was not practical? What if it was not a tool of the workshop, the surveyor, or the home, but an object of the spirit? The strong concentration of these objects in Gallo-Roman areas, where local traditions often blended with Roman culture, has led many to believe they had a ritualistic purpose. Perhaps the dodecahedron was an instrument of divination, a tool for telling the future. It could have been used like dice, its resting position on a particular face holding some special meaning. Or maybe it was an astrological device. The 12 faces could correspond to the 12 months of the year, or the 12 houses of the zodiac. An astronomer priest might have used it to track the movement of the sun and stars, determining the most auspicious times for planting crops or beginning a journey. Held up to the light of the sun, the different-sized holes might have helped to pinpoint a specific date, like the winter solstice. It might also have been a symbol of power or religious authority, the head of a scepter carried by a local chieftain or the priest of a Celtic deity whose worship was absorbed into the Roman system. Its complex geometry, representing the cosmos, may have held a sacred meaning that has been lost to us completely. And then there is the possibility that it was none of these things. Perhaps it was simply a masterpiece, a final test for a bronze caster to prove his skill before being accepted into a guild. Or maybe it was just a clever and fascinating toy for a wealthy child. In the end, we simply do not know. The most profound part of this mystery is not the object itself, but the silence that surrounds it. This complete absence from the historical record is what makes the dodecahedron so deeply compelling. Why was it never written about? This silence hints at two opposite possibilities. Perhaps its use was so mundane, so common and self-explanatory in its time and place, that no one ever felt the need to describe it. It would be like a modern writer feeling the need to explain the function of a fork or a key. Or, conversely, perhaps its function was a closely guarded secret. It might have been a sacred object used in the private rituals of a mystery cult, whose secrets were forbidden to be written down, passed on only by word of mouth from one initiate to the next. In the end, the dodecahedron remains a silent keeper of its own secrets. It is a small, bronze puzzle box from the past, a quiet testament to the many parts of daily life, belief, and knowledge that history did not record. It reminds us that for all the stories we can tell, there are so many more that are lost to the quiet passage of time, leaving only a beautiful, unanswered question in their wake. Our journey tonight has so far remained in the narrow streets, the crowded workshops, and the mysterious corners of the common Roman world. But to truly understand the society of Rome, we must lift our gaze from the ground floor of the insula and look towards the sprawling, opulent residences of the elite. For in the same city where you awoke on a straw mattress, another life was unfolding, a life of unimaginable comfort, leisure, and power. Let us now explore the world of the Roman patrician, the senator, the aristocrat, to see how the other half, or rather the other tiny fraction, of the population lived. Instead of waking in a cramped, noisy apartment, imagine your day beginning in the quiet solitude of a grand city home, a domus. You are surrounded not by brick and timber, but by cool, thick walls of stone, adorned with breathtaking frescoes depicting scenes from mythology. Your bedroom is a small, private chamber, a cubiculum, but it opens into a vast central hall, the atrium. Here, a large rectangular opening in the roof, the compluvium, allows the soft morning light to filter down, illuminating a shallow pool in the floor below, the impluvium, which catches the rainwater. The sound is not the roar of the street, but the gentle dripping of water, a peaceful and constant rhythm. The domus is designed to be a private sanctuary, a retreat from the chaos of the city. Beyond the public reception area of the atrium, the house extends into a second, even more private section built around a colonnaded garden called a peristyle. Imagine strolling under a covered walkway, looking out at a manicured garden with bubbling fountains, fragrant flowers, and intricate statues of gods and ancestors. The air here is cool and scented with jasmine and damp earth. This is a world of peace, order, and immense beauty, a stark contrast to the sensory overload of the city just outside its walls. And this is merely the city residence. An even grander villa, with sprawling farmlands and breathtaking views, awaits you in the countryside. As a member of the elite, your day is not structured by the demands of manual labor, but by a complex series of social and political rituals. Your morning begins with the salutatio, the morning greeting. You, the wealthy patron, hold court in your atrium as a stream of lower-ranking citizens, your clients, arrive to pay their respects. They come to you for legal assistance, for financial support, or simply to be seen in your presence. In return, you receive their political loyalty and their public support. It is a carefully choreographed performance of power and dependency, the bedrock of the Roman social structure. After this, your attention might turn to politics in the forum, or to managing your vast business interests, which are likely spread across the empire, from olive groves in Spain to grain shipments from Egypt. Leisure is not an indulgence, but a central part of your life and identity. You might spend hours in your private library, reading Greek philosophy or composing your own poetry. Your education has been extensive, focused on rhetoric, history, and law, the essential tools for a man of public standing. The grand public baths are still a part of your routine, but your experience there is different. You arrive with an entourage, and you use the facilities not just for hygiene and leisure, but as another venue for networking, for forging alliances, and for conducting the subtle business of politics. The day culminates in the cena, the evening meal, but for you, it is not a simple bowl of porridge. It is an elaborate, multi-hour banquet, a dinner party of immense social and political significance. Imagine yourself reclining on a plush couch in the triclinium, the formal dining room, which is decorated with the finest mosaics and murals. You are one of 9 guests, arranged in a precise hierarchy on 3 large couches set around a central table. The meal consists of course after course of extravagant and exotic foods, designed to showcase your immense wealth and sophistication. There might be oysters from Britain, songbirds from the forests of Gaul, and fish from the furthest reaches of the Mediterranean. Sauces are complex, designed to surprise and delight the palate. Wine, heavily diluted with water and often sweetened with honey, flows freely. Between courses there is entertainment, musicians playing the lyre, dancers, and perhaps even a reading from a famous poet. The conversation is just as important as the food, a delicate dance of wit, political maneuvering, and philosophical debate. This is not just a meal, it is a theatrical performance of status. But this entire world of effortless luxury, of art, philosophy, and political leisure rests upon a vast and almost entirely invisible foundation, the institution of slavery. The beautiful, peaceful domus does not run itself. Its every function is carried out by a large and highly specialized staff of enslaved people. Imagine the sheer number of individuals required to maintain this lifestyle. There are the cooks in the kitchen, masters of complex recipes. There are the servants who attend to the guests in the triclinium, ensuring their wine cups are never empty. There are the chamberlains who manage the household accounts, the scribes who handle your correspondence, and the pedagogues who educate your children. There are the bath attendants, the litter bearers who carry you through the streets, the gardeners who tend the peristyle, and the doorkeepers who guard the entrance. Their lives are a world away from your own. They have no personal freedom, no control over their own destiny. Their work is constant, their presence assumed, their individual stories almost entirely unrecorded by history. Their labor is the unseen energy that powers every aspect of the elite Roman world, from the warmth of the Hippocaust system beneath the floors to the perfectly folded toga laid out for you in the morning. This stark contrast defines the reality of Roman society. The grand achievements we admire, the aqueducts, the law codes, the literature, were made possible by a system that concentrated wealth and leisure into the hands of a very few, built upon the tireless, unacknowledged labor of the many. The quiet, ordered beauty of the patrician's villa and the noisy, precarious struggle of the plebeian in the insula are two sides of the same Roman coin, inextricably linked in a complex and profoundly unequal world. And so, our journey through this multifaceted Roman world comes to a gentle close. We have walked the crowded, noisy streets in the shoes of a common citizen, feeling the precariousness of life in the towering insulae and finding shared comfort in the warmth of the public baths. We have traveled across continents on a mission of quiet perseverance, seeing how the threads of connection were slowly woven between great civilizations, all because one person endured. We have held a small bronze mystery in our hands, a silent reminder of all the questions that history can no longer answer. And we have glimpsed the serene, ordered luxury of the elite, a world of art and philosophy built upon a foundation of unseen labor. The Roman world, in all its complexity, can feel at once both strangely familiar and impossibly distant. The human desire for community, for purpose, for a moment of peace at the end of a long day, these things are timeless. Yet, the world they inhabited, a world without the comforts we take for granted, a world of constant uncertainty, of plagues and fires, and of rigid social divides, has faded into the deep past. As we leave these ancient stories behind, become aware once more of the quiet space around you. Feel the comfort of your bed, the softness of the fabric against your skin. Listen to the silence of your own time, a peaceful quiet that was a rare luxury in the heart of ancient Rome. Here, in the safety and stillness of your room, the struggles and splendors of the past can recede, becoming a soft, distant echo. History is not just a story of emperors and empires, but the sum of billions of quiet, lived experiences. The potter at his wheel, the diplomat on his long journey, the priest with his sacred object, the senator at his banquet, all of them lived and breathed, hoped and dreamed under the same sun and moon that we see today. And now their time is done. Their stories are told, and it is time for rest. Allow the echoes of the past to fade completely now, leaving only peace and stillness in their place. May your rest be deep, untroubled, and profound. Sleep well.